The Great Debaters Contest is brought to you by Safaricom M-Pesa.
We're representing Mombasa region right now, and I am Austin Yambok for the Great Debaters Contest.
I am Mariam Bishar, and today we have St. John's going versus Puma, and they're debating on whether cashless systems will be the greatest step in fighting corruption. We'll let the debaters take the stage now. Proposer number 1, you have 3 minutes.
I do believe in a society of honest and hard work, not of corruption and crookedness. I believe in a society of openness and straightforwardness, not of hypocrisy and double dealing. I personally believe in a society where opportunities are given to all the people, not to the chosen few. I am Faith Sidi from St. John's Girls Secondary School, here to propose the motion that says cashless transaction is the greatest step towards ending corruption. And the question that you're asking yourself is, what is cashless transaction? Cashless transaction, these are dealings whose payments is made in the form of smart cards, the use of M-Pesa pay bill, the use of swipe machines, and the credit cards. And what is corruption? Corruption is the misuse of power that is entrusted to a person for personal gain. I'd like you to join me to see how cashless transaction will enable us as a country and the world at large to curb corruption in the world. First of all, corruption manifests itself in many forms, one of which being bribery. And what is bribery? This is where money is given out for a favor to be done. Let's have a view of our roads, the matatus, drivers, and the matatu conductors. We realize that once we pay these conductors using hard cash, they will be able to carry out corruption. How? This is it. When they walk on the roads, they're driving their cars, and they come to the traffic police, and they found that these people are in the wrong side of the law. These people will be able to take out the money and give it to the traffic police, and no trail will be left for anyone to investigate what happened. But we realize when we use cashless transaction, like we pay money through M-Pesa, these conductors will not have money in their pockets. They'll not be able to pay the traffic police. So they'll have to send the money maybe through M-Pesa. When you send money through M-Pesa, a trail will be left behind where people can investigate. This payment was made. Why was it made for? And when this traffic police is not able to account for his deeds, it will be able to be deducted that this person conducted corruption. And this person will be brought forward to the law so that he can face the consequences of his acts. Still on the roads, citing Simon Kimutai, the chairman of Heads Association of Matatu Owners, say that when corruption, 30% of the money that people collect in the roads do not benefit the people because it does not go to the owners, and this money is likely to be used in bribery. I'd like you all to consider this. Cashless transaction is the way forward. Thank you.
Opposition, you have 3 minutes for your opening statements.
Cashless transaction will be the greatest step towards ending corruption. First question we should be asking is that, what's cashless transaction? Cashless transaction is functioning without using coins or banknotes, or instead using bank coins for money transaction, but instead using credit cards or electronic transfer funds. What is corruption? Corruption is dishonesty or fraudulent conduct by those in power, typically involving corruption. I strongly oppose that cashless transaction will reduce corruption in our country. Let's just take an example of a machine known as skimmers. What are skimmers? Skimmers is a device that steals credit cards information when the card is stripped through them. This can happen in store or restaurant when a card is not of the owner's view. And frequently, the card information is then sold online to a criminal community. So I strongly oppose that the introduction of cashless transaction in the form of credit cards can reduce corruption. Let's take an example in our country, the Anglo-leasing scandal. This started when Kenyan government wanted to replace passport printing system in year 1997. This was so easy. Firstly, sophisticated passport equipment system was sorted from France, and forensic science laboratory for the police was sorted from Britain. The transaction was originally quoted at 60 million euros from a French firm, but was awarded to a British firm, Anglo-leasing Finance, at 30 million euros. That was majorly through the credit cards and information in computers. It was not through cash. And you can see, even if you introduce cashless transaction, corruption will still go on. The second thing is about botnet. What is a botnet? A network of soft microbooster bots that automatically spreads malware. Through computer, one can interchange figures and give you a wrong figure which you not deserve. Example is in 2012, the NHIF scandal. A doctor was able to interchange an NHIF card of an outpatient in a particular hospital. That indeed was an outcome of corruption. I truly oppose that cashless transaction can lead to eradication of corruption. Another point to add is that corruption is solved by introduction of policies and good leadership and not cashless transaction. Thank you.
We'll now hear cross-examinations. Proposers, you have 3 minutes.
Okay, thank you very much. Michelle Goren, St. John's Girls Secondary School. I'm here to propose the motion that says, cashless transaction will be the greatest step towards ending corruption. When I go to the field of business, there's this thing called inflation. Inflation is the rising of prices beyond limit. Services and goods, you can go to a certain shop and people sell for you goods, as in they add a certain amount of money on top of it. And this amount of money is not legal. They just put it in their pocket. This is a form of corruption. But if you use cashless transaction, this transaction will be recorded electronically. And this person will be able to be tracked by the police. And now, such dealings in the society can be fully eliminated. Another point is about money laundering. This is where a person can just come up with a lie, like, okay, I want people to donate for me in aid of something like felt needs such as treatment and education. People will contribute. Later on, if this person comes to be known that he had lied about the whole issue, cashless transaction will be efficient because every money that this person had collected from the people can be traced back, can be returned back to the owners, and such evil dealings in the society can be traced, and this person can be taken to the court, and these people will be fully eliminated from the society. Many people in Kenya live below the poverty levels. If these evil dealings in the society continue to thrive in more and more, these people will be fully disadvantaged, and this will bring a lot of poverty in the society. This is opposed to the use of hard cash, where no transaction will be recorded electronically, and no trace or nothing can detect that this person lied or this person took money from people, and these evil dealings will just continue in the society. So I strongly propose the motion that says cashless transaction is the greatest step towards ending corruption. Thank you.
Opposition, you have 3 minutes for rebuttal.
JP Morgan is one of the largest USA and most powerful banks, which is almost 300,000 times the size of smaller banks combined. The top 4 US banks control 60% of banking deposits. Research says that these banks are owned and controlled by the government policies. So, if there are other minor people who want to access the services of these banks, then they will have to settle several dealings. If the product they want to service is not preferable to the bank. And as my fellow opponent said here, overpricing. In the overpricing of goods, the price is determined by many factors, and not only the price, not only the cashless transaction is going to deal in it. I wouldn't be so sure that monopoly technology power cannot be manipulated. I am inclined to play the devil's advocate, bringing up the point that going cashless will give the government never seen before levels of access and power over citizens' transactions. There is no saying that such power will not be misused. For example, what if a poor farmer is denied access to transaction based on powerful personal opinion? I can easily imagine this scenario where the upper hand, the person who has the higher ranking, he opposes what the poor farmer has. And for the poor farmer to join into the business and be allowed to transact, then he is told to give some bribery so that he can join into the business. The cashless transaction, which is taking us towards the banking depositing process, is making the poorer population to have a very high rate of paying unexpected costs for them to access the banking services. In the US, if one uses liquid cash to handle a transaction of more than 10,000 US dollars, then he is categorized to be suspicious. That means that that person has money. A group that needs monitoring. In such a case, then it will take the officials of the bank to say that that person using liquid cash, and that cash could be used in the cashless transaction, he has some unfavorable opportunities, and he is told to pay a bribe so that his position can be held in the bank. Thank you.
The benefits that M-Pesa has provided me for as a subsidiary of Safaricom Kenya is that it has enabled my parents to transfer money from their accounts to my school's bank account, therefore enabling me to have school fees so that I can learn in school.
Take part in the M Challenge by sending your short song, rap or poem about Safaricom M-Pesa on WhatsApp, and you could win 1,000 shillings in Safaricom airtime.
The audience has posed questions to the two teams on stage. They will be responding. The proposers have been asked, isn't accessing people's financial records an invasion of their privacy? And of course, the opposition have been asked, if cashless systems don't fight corruption, what other solutions do they offer to this problem? We'll have them respond. Proposer number 3, you have 3 minutes.
Thank you very much. My name is Eva Munga from St. John's Girls Secondary School. I'd like to answer the question from the boy from Aldina. I didn't get the name. This is how it goes. You've asked that if going into other people's their accounts, it's a form of privacy. We agree it's privacy, but this time we are dealing with corruption. What if you're one of the victims of the corrupt system? What if you're one of the victims that a person tried to hack your account and take all the money? Are you not going to complain to the services that our country is insecure? You will. You'll complain. That's why we are not saying that. We are not saying that corruption, cashless transactions are going to end all the corruption or the corrupt deeds in Kenya. No, we are trying to point out that cashless transactions, if they are tried to be implemented in Kenya, they're going to be of importance in our country. Thank you. Cashless transactions. We all know that it's a way that you're using you're not using hard cash. This is whereby if a person tries to lie using fake currency in a place like the bank, that person is likely to be caught and will be able to we are going to be able to control fake currency in the bank, because there'll be a machine which will be used to trail if this, to detect that currency if it's fake or the one which we use. I'm going to talk about India. If India is trying to implement this form of cashless transaction, India is trying to implement. Nigeria is also going for it. Why not us Kenyans? And we also know that Kenya is a really corrupt nation, whereby if we use cashless transaction, we are going to at least curb the corrupt deeds which we are able to do. This has already begun in Nairobi, Ngong. The matatu system and the bus, they're using cashless transaction. They're using Abiria cards to pay. And this has really caused a lot of resistance in those people, because they know that it's going to affect their income. They are against it because they know that it's going to affect their income. So if we are going to resist any change in Kenya, how are we going to thrive even in corruption, whereby we know that it exists in Kenya, and we know that if we continue this way, we are not going to move ahead? How are we going to curb corruption if we can state that it's expensive or cashless transaction, like how my fellow opponent has said? I said that in the banks, we have high rates of what if you want to contact your account, that it is expensive. That expense which is given there pays for the advantage which is going to be in you. Thank you.
Opposition, you have 3 minutes to respond.
That's a sigh of relief. The question is, when is our country going to offer that, saying that at least corruption has ended, or at least there is reduction in corruption? My name is Baraka Lwanga from Puma Secondary School, ready to strongly oppose the motion that says cashless transaction will be the greatest step towards ending corruption. First, I'll try to answer the question posed to me by the audience. We were asked that if cashless transaction is not the solution, what are the solutions? We should not blame corruption on using cash. It is the same analogy being used when someone commits a mistake and then blames the devil of committing the mistake. So, cashless transaction is not a solution, and it's not even a step. Instead, it will be like putting off an paraffin-induced fire using petrol. Instead of solving something, we are introducing another kind of corruption. On adding, cashless transaction will lead to the acceleration of cyber fraud. What is cyber fraud? This is a type of fraud whereby one hacks into a person's online account and withdraws money from there. And putting in place that this cashless transaction is a system, it's a whole bunch of systems, and it is made by human beings. It is probably possible that one can manipulate the system in order to hide a transaction that may have been illegal. Another thing I'm going to talk about is mistreatment of people using the banking systems by the banks. This will be another chance of mistreating the people using the banking systems, in which way the banks can align with people in power so that they overcharge or take some charges that are not required during the transactions. Another thing, we should also take into consideration that cash is not a cause of corruption, but cases like greediness and the need to get something faster are also causes of corruption. And therefore, when we say that we introduce cashless transaction as a method or as a step to ending corruption, we will be cheating ourselves. And that is only applicable in fairy tales.
We'll hear closing statements now. Proposers, you have 1 minute.
We must weed out corruption and build up a strong system of justice that the people can trust. And one of the methods of curbing corruption in our country is using the cashless transaction. We don't imply that cashless transaction will reduce corruption completely, but should be a step towards ending corruption. And my fellow opposers, who are saying that cashless transaction can't reduce corruption. You could at least give us ways which we can see that corruption can be curbed in our country, rather than telling us that corruption cannot be curbed using cashless transaction. In my humble opinion, I do believe that cashless transaction can help, because if India has gone for it, it has already begun in Nairobi. I do believe that that technology used in curbing corruption through cashless transaction, it can be the same technology that can be used to track those people who hike others' accounts. Thank you.
Opposition, you also have a minute.
I'll use the same example of India that the proposers had used. In India, they are using both cashless transactions and cash, liquid cash. But the scale at which the cashless transactions are going on is higher than the cash. But a question I asked myself, why is the rate of corruption high? And yet they are using the same cashless transaction. We are saying it will be the greatest step towards ending corruption. There are people in this world who cannot do without corruption. It's like their basic human want. And therefore, when we try to enforce cashless transaction, corruption will also go cashless due to what? The manipulation of the systems and many other factors. Thank you.
St. John's, I wanted you to be very furious of how, cash transactions has been one of the greatest element, and show us very examples that exist that have been there. I know you tried to mention a few of cases where we have had the use of the Abiria card and others, and they were trying to come out. But my question was, did you base these particular facts with the reports that exist, with the facts that are there? For example, if you said, because of the use of these particular cards, for example, corruption through the cash transactions, corruption that was there has reduced from maybe this percentage to this. That brings a better argument, all right? So don't generalize your facts by just giving some general comments, all right? All the best.
To Puma Secondary, you begin well, because you talk about the fact that corruption is not fought just by not having cashless transactions, but by good leadership. And after that beginning, Paul, the rest are not able to follow through. I think for Tony, you read too much. And as a debater, one of the things that you want to focus on or you want to use to your advantage is eye contact. This is public speaking. You're not reading. So you need to know your points and don't dwell on reading too much, because then you disconnect from your audience. Barek, after you sit down, I ask myself that you bring out other things that fuel corruption. But what do you suggest as a step towards ending that corruption? If it is not cashless transactions, then what is it that would actually help, end corruption in a country such as this? And that, for me, was the missing link. All the best to the two schools.
Allow me to say content was not well mastered. Good, you've made it to the GDC team. You'll go back to your schools, but try and sit down and ask yourselves, how can we make our teams better? At the same time, watch the Great Debaters Contest. Those schools that have succeeded, what have they done? If we talk about mastery of content, what have they done in their mastery of content? And above all, delivery. At one point, I just told Baraka, I think you've forgotten that you have an audience. You're almost speaking to yourself, not really knowing that you have an audience that is listening to you and you intend to convince the audience. There's a lot we need to do as debaters in order to grow. This was a fair start, but I believe we can make ourselves better in the next presentations.
We have Puma Secondary School with 60.8%. Please give them a round of applause. St. John's Girls. The judges saw it fit to award you 61.9%. You are our winners for the debate.
Bravo to St. John's Girls, and of course Puma put up a spirited fight. We'd like to thank them for giving us such a wonderful debate. We'd like to thank our viewers as well for tuning in. Remember to follow us on Twitter at Great Debaters EA and on all other forms of social media. And a special thanks goes to our sponsor, Safaricom M-Pesa, and to KBC Channel 1. I have been your host, Mariam Bishar.
And I am Austin Nyambok. Catch you next time.
The Great Debaters Contest was brought to you by Safaricom M-Pesa.